Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report, Monday's edition, broadcasting from beautiful Irvine, California. Happy to have you here on our solo show today. Hey folks, the weekend unfortunately was chock full of tragic information as well as just some political nonsense that took place. We're going to cover it all for you. The tragedy as well as the economic implications from some of the things going on with the administration. But first, let me start with what happened on Friday night. The House actually passed this monstrosity of a bill, the $1.75 trillion infrastructure bill. It's not infrastructure, folks. It's a socialism bill. And the Democrats basically call it social infrastructure. It's another federal giveaway program to support their nonsensical social desire to increase the safety net throughout the country. Let me tell you some of the garbage that's in this bill. Universal pre-K 3 and 4-year-olds. Now, nobody's against educating 3 and 4-year-olds, but come on. Do we really have to pour billions into that? No, that should be a state issue. It shouldn't be a federalized issue. Again, $3,600 child credit for up to age 6 years old, and then $3,000 after that. Why is that in this bill? That shouldn't be in this bill. And there's a chance it could get watered down in the Senate version. Paid leave, 4 weeks. Well, that may not make the final cut of the next bill either. Manchin and Sinema have expressed lack of support for those items. And then, folks, you know the old saying, pouring salt in the wound. I'm not talking about salt. I'm talking about state and local tax deductions. The Democratic Party claims that they represent the little guy. That is a bold-faced lie. The salt, increasing that salt deduction from $10,000 to $80,000, which is what the Democrats in the House, particularly those ones from heavily taxed northeastern states, are doing, is effectively giving massive tax breaks to the wealthiest 10% of Americans. Folks, that's a big cost of this entire bill, is restoring that salt deduction. And basically what it lets you do for the small percentage of people that itemize their deductions on their tax return, rather than taking the standard deduction under the Trump tax law that passed years ago, that thing is capped at $10,000. Why? Because that's the current law. So the Democrats in these liberal, high-tax Northeast states said, hey, you're hurting our wealthy constituents. What a bunch of hypocrisy. They insert a piece into this bill. I'm telling you, people are not going to be happy about this. Even the liberals of the party are saying, hey, what are we doing here? This isn't right. So at least give some credit to some of the liberals for standing up, and hopefully this provision does not make it in the Senate bill. So again, they passed it. You probably saw the scene with a bunch of Democrats jumping up and down, whooping, hollering, clapping their fingers. Folks, we've been telling you this for a long, long time. All they do is continue to lie to their base, which is why their poll numbers are cratering. Yes, they did pass that bill, but even the esteemed Rashida Tlaib of Squad fame acknowledges there's going to be cuts in the final Senate version. We'll see what those cuts are. Manchin has made clear his views. Sinema has, to a certain degree, made clear hers. And now, the arm twisting of Schumer twisting Manchin's arm will begin, and we'll see how it all shakes out. The Democrats' goal is to get the Senate version passed by Christmas. It's a reasonable goal, I would guess. The question is, with all these other provisions in the bill, Manchin has warned about the inflation problems, how much in that bill survives? Will the salt deduction get whittled down? There's been some liberal Democrats and conservative Republicans, irony of ironies, have agreed that in the Senate that needs to be cut down. Now they're talking about maybe leaving that deduction in place, but only for those people making less than $400,000 a year. Again, we'll see how it plays itself out, folks. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about this tomorrow with constitutional scholar John Eidsmoe, but the the fallout from the Rittenhouse trial has been significant. I mean, the left in this country has become unhinged. These BLM activists are unglued. They're outraged. Why? because the media in this country has fanned the flames of disinformation and race, and their narrative on this case has been destroyed. Kyle Rittenhouse was not a white supremacist, as then candidate Joe Biden claimed. The victims in this case were all white. Basically, the media tried to spin this as Rittenhouse being a white supremacist, a vigilante, you name it. None of it was true. And when the liberal media has their narrative destroyed, which they did in this case, they're going to fight back, and that's what they've been doing. These buffoons over at MSDNC and CNN trying to spin this trial for something that it wasn't, they should be ashamed of themselves, and they got called out for it. So we'll get into the legal analysis of it a little bit more detail tomorrow, again with constitutional lawyer as a guest on the show. But needless to say, you saw the reaction over the weekend. The narrative that these leftists and these radicals have, they did not care that justice was served. And again, in our court system, that's the purpose of it. The brave jurors that stood up and rendered the correct verdict should be applauded. But no. People on the left can't tolerate this. To them, vigilante justice, white kid getting away with it, In this country, you have a right to self-defense. Pardon me the tears for the families of the victims who were sitting there saying this kid should have been convicted. No, I don't agree with that at all. Had their sons that were killed not attacked Rittenhouse, they'd still be alive today. There's a responsibility that goes. When you get out on the streets, why were they out on the streets in the first place? They didn't need to be there, but they were. And Rittenhouse was attacked and he defended himself, and that's how the jury saw it. So, one thing that has happened, though, because it was so politicized, you have idiots like Jerry Nadler coming out and saying, well, we need the feds to look into this jury case. Well, we don't do that on any other case. And the feds aren't going to get involved in this at this point. The jury's spoken, it's over. Yes, some people can disagree with the decision. That's their right of First Amendment speech. But to do something like that buffoon Nadler did and go out there and say, the Justice Department has to investigate this. The Justice Department's already looked at the case. That just tells you how foolish some of these Democrats are. And then you get the idiots like Cori Bush and, what's her name? Ilhan Omar. Just condemning the decision. Folks, all that does is stroke the fires of racial division in this country, and it's not necessary. This was based upon state law. Again, we'll talk about it tomorrow, but this was a verdict that appears that the jury properly reached. But to see the liberals and what they're doing in their liberal media outlets, on Twitter, and the sheer disgust with the verdict, it just makes your head spin. Folks, I know we have a divided country, but at least when a jury gets it right, thank the jury and let's move on, as some politicians alluded to. Even Biden said we have to respect the jury, but then he put out a statement sort of backtracking a little bit. I'll give Biden a pass on that. He had to say what he had to say. Harris was asked about it in an impromptu airport interview. Again, made the cursory comment, we have to respect the jury, but we have to look into the law. Okay, well, fine. You want to look into the law? Look into the law. But based upon the law, the jury made the right call there. Now, let's go over some other things that have been happening, folks. Okay, this country has been seeing a crime spree, the likes of which, it's insane what's going on. And look what we have happen over the weekend. In Walnut Creek, just north of San Francisco, 50 to 60 masked looters. It was an attack, basically, on a Nordstrom. They brought crowbars with them as weapons, and they basically looted the store. 50, 60, 65 masked people in an organized attack on a major department store, Nordstrom's. Not to be outdone, in Chicago, similar situation where thieves organized a raid on a Louis Vuitton store, stole $120,000 worth of goods. When you have these situations where these bail laws where these district attorneys don't enforce the law in these liberal blue cities, these problems continue. And in Chicago, oh my God, okay. 31 people shot, 5 killed over the weekend. I mean, it's just insane stuff. 725 people have been killed year to date. And you got, again, 45 people in November. A lot of African Americans have said enough's enough. They're moving out of Chicago. You know, they want to have a good life. They want to not worry about being shot every time they go outside their door. The African American population in Chicago has dropped to its lowest level since the 1950s. There's less than 800,000 now in the suburban metro areas of Chicago. Who can blame them? What do you want to live in a shooting gallery? It's really sad what's happened in some of these blue cities. And then, we have a situation where a career criminal who is out on $1,000 bail, again, we're not going to judge this case because we preach that, don't judge the case. But the facts are, a guy was out on a career criminal, out on $1,000 bail, pending charges that he tried to run over, his girlfriend, mother of his child, with his car. Kills 5 people, injures 40, again in the state of Wisconsin. About 50 miles, from where the Rittenhouse trial was going on. Folks, that's a tragedy no matter how you cut it. I mean, it's just a horrible thing that happened, a Christmas parade going on. Details still have to follow. So again, we don't want to prejudge what's going on here, but a lot of people are outraged over the fact that this guy was out on $1,000 bond and he's been a career criminal. You actually have people in the Twitter sphere, these far left radicals. I can't even say the words, it's so bad. I mean, basically trying to justify what this guy did. That tells you how just politically broken these idiots are on the left that post stuff like this. 5 families have lost children right around the holidays. A senseless act of violence. We don't know the cause of it yet. We don't know the motivation. All that still has to come. But it's a tragedy nonetheless. And again, the person in custody, we're not going to prejudge this case, but we do know the facts are this was a career criminal out on $1,000 bail, had a history of domestic violence, had a history of using his car as a weapon on the mother of his child, I guess his ex-girlfriend or ex-wife. So I don't want to say too much more about this because we want to see what the facts are, and it's a rapidly developing case. So let's let the police do their job. Let's let the investigators do their job. Let's not jump to any conclusions here, because that's the last thing we need in this country is, to have another issue like this come up. All right, other things that have happened here, okay? I got to tell you something. These COVID lockdowns, you think we have it bad here? Over in Europe, they're facing lockdowns and vaccine mandates and widespread protests from Vienna to Rome, all over the continent. And you've got COVID cases rising pretty rapidly in Europe right now. So that's happening there. Here in the United States, COVID cases are spiking in some of these cold weather northern states. Don't have any correlation, can't tie it in. I saw Fauci appear on some of the Sunday shows basically advocating for, the 3rd booster shot. And again, we don't keep opinion one way or another on this show. Everybody should consult their doctor on that. But that was recommended by Fauci and the administration over the weekend. Apparently there's plenty of doses available for those that can take it now. Basically anyone, I think, over the age of 30 has been green-lighted to have the booster vaccine. Now, it's one thing to talk boosters, but the other, these mask mandates, again, lots of controversy, folks. There are administration officials that have come on and said 90% of federal employees have been vaccinated. I don't know if it's true or not. Seems like a reasonably high figure. But we've also seen cases where military members who are refusing to do so, police, first responders, etc., there could be some problems here. So Some states like Florida are fighting against it. A lot of breakthrough cases. Let's just say in a time of economic uncertainty, vaccine mandates are the last thing that needs to be lumped onto employers. But there's a big fight going on right now between federal mandates and state opposition to those mandates. We'll keep an eye on it, but boy, it's really affecting a lot of people right now. And it will affect more too. So I heard Secretary Buttigieg on one of the talk shows over the weekend. He was talking about the fact that mid-90% of people in DOT have been vaccinated. He was asked the question, well, in this big crunch of holiday travelers over the weekend coming up, will there be ample TSA people at the airports? Buttigieg said, yes, there will be. So hopefully what he said was correct, because we want to have our citizens travel safely, through the Thanksgiving holidays. Now, on some important stuff. We talk economics a lot on the show. President Biden has renominated Jerome Powell to be Federal Reserve Chairman for a second term, and has also nominated Lyle Brainerd to be Vice Chairman. It's going to be going to the Senate. Some Democrats have announced their opposition to it. It's going to take 51 votes to confirm. I'm not sure where the Republican leadership lands on this one. But Biden has renominated Powell. And my only critique of the chairman is that he's been so wrong on his inflation forecast. I mean, the Fed continues to pump money into our system. Everybody on Wall Street loves it. Powell's well respected on Wall Street. So to make a change, I think, would have been somewhat rocky for the markets. But Powell's been wrong on inflation, and people are feeling it in the pocketbooks. And, they're still buying this month $115 billion of bonds, and in December, $90 billion. So I think the jury's still out on the effectiveness of that policy, but there's no question that we've thrown a lot of money at this problem. And the question is, as the taper continues, will Powell continue to taper, reduce the amount he's buying? I don't know. We'll see. The Fed has a dual mandate. And that mandate, stable prices and low unemployment. Well, we don't have stable prices right now. Prices are escalating rapidly. On the employment picture, it's better. I mean, the unemployment rate's under 5%, but we still have 10 million job openings in this country. So it's a mixed view on that. But he has been renominated. Wall Street's happy with that. And we'll keep an eye on his confirmation process. Now, let's talk about a little bit of news that came out over the weekend. We just got done talking about inflation, folks. We cite a lot of polls here on the show. We often don't quote the mainstream media, but it is noteworthy when CBS, a charter member of the mainstream media and the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, comes out and says, on inflation, Joe Biden is totally underwater. 2/3 of Americans, 67%, think he's not doing enough to combat inflation. I want to know who the 1/3 are that agree with him. Anyhow, his numbers are way upside down on that. His overall approval rating, 44% approve, 56% do not. The approval number is slightly higher than Biden's been recently. He's been hovering around 38 to 40. But in those polls, they factored in undecided voters. This one, there was no undecided. It was either yes or no. We couldn't wiggle out of it. 56% disagreeing with where Biden's taken the country. That's 12 points underwater. That's pretty consistent. We've been showing 12, 13, 14 points underwater. So that poll is consistent with other warning signs for the Democrats. And we've been talking about it on the show, folks, for weeks. They don't seem to be listening, though. I mean, they seem to be continuing to double down on stupid. Yes, the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Buttigieg, talked about some pretty good ideas about ways they're trying to clear the ports. I applaud him for that. Like I told you, if they're doing something right, we'll give them credit. But they've got to loosen up the energy opportunities in this country. Get off the regulation as much as they're doing. Open up some drilling on federal land and offshore. Get these pipelines going again and stop doing things to shoot ourselves in the foot. That will help because oil goes into everything. And if they can gradually unlock these supply chains, maybe we can get some progress. But folks, we've been telling you this. Once that inflation number gets baked in, people expect it. And it's going to be crushing this winter when those heating bills come in. So anyhow, the numbers were not good for Biden on that inflation front. And his approval ratings continue to be underwater. You know who's going to benefit from this? And we keep saying over and over, when these 2022 elections come around, right now, again, elections aren't now, but if they were, it'd be a bloodbath. Republicans will pick up probably 50 seats in the House of Representatives. Now in the Senate, the Cook Political Report, which is a nonpartisan, independent, group, Charlie Cook and his team, they've moved 3 Senate races, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, currently occupied by Democrats, to lean Republican. That's 3 seats, folks. It's a 50-50 Senate right now. So what are the Democrats doing? Well, the ones in the House are saying, we got to pass Build Back Better. That's it. More liberal, more spending, while all this inflation's going on. It just makes no sense why you would do this. That liberal position, that the far left wing of this party that's controlling it, driving the agenda, that's supported by less than 25% of the American public. It's roughly 20%. So why they keep pushing policies that the far left dictates, it's a mystery, but that's what they're doing. So again, these things all have political implications, folks. So if this trend continues, it's a big if, only between now and November, that is an eternity in politics. But once the momentum gets going, it's hard to stop it. So as these races come about, we're going to talk about it. Now, a lot of people say, Mark, boy, they just don't seem to be making any progress down on the border either. Hell, it's getting worse. There were stories out, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, has deployed the Texas National Guard, particularly in places like West Texas. And there's a phenomenon going on there. People come across the Rio Grande Valley. They want to get arrested. They want to go through these camps, the detention camps. And then hopefully their case gets heard, or they get told to, we're going to take you to a different part of the country. They're volunteering. They're not resisting. They're volunteering to be arrested. On the West Texas border, really open space is a different story. You have people trying to evade Texas state troopers. You have smugglers trying to get people in. Drugs are pouring in, folks. Oh, it's horrific. It's leading to more drug overdoses in this country than any time in its history. And yet, the Texas state troopers are being somewhat overwhelmed. There's so many people crossing. And what is the Biden administration doing? That's a big issue. But, it's not the issue level of inflation and gas prices, but boy, it ranks up there in the top 5. People are not happy with it. And every week more stories come out. And you've got Greg Abbott in Texas trying to do everything he can with the state police, with the Texas National Guard, helping support our ICE agents, but it's still not enough. Biden needs to really it should have made this a priority long ago, but you ask yourself, Mark, why didn't he do it? Because it's not in their interest to do it. The Democratic Party is contingent, for it to continue existing, they have to create a dependency class. That's what this is all about. Do not kid yourself on this, folks. That's what this is all about. We'll continue to monitor it for you, but we like to tell you, hey, it's getting better. But it's not. It's actually getting a little bit worse. All right, so look. Have you noticed the pattern here, folks? Mainstream America wants to go one thing in one direction for the country. Liberals and radicals want to go a different way. And they get so outraged all the time anytime something goes against them. Well, that happened again today. Supreme Court announced they were going to make a decision on a ruling today. Well, all the liberals out there and the people that, far left-wing radicals, they assumed it was going to be dealing with the Texas abortion case. No, wrong. The Supreme Court basically deferred on that. They did not make a decision, and that's got liberals in a tizzy. I mean, they're outraged that the Texas law wasn't addressed. What was addressed was some water rights dispute between two states. Now, that's not going to make your top 20 in big issues. Maybe an issue with those two states, but on a national issue, it's not going to really cause anybody's heart to pound. But boy, those liberals are outraged. Some point being is here they are back again. Well, we can't have these conservatives on the court dictating. Here they go, court packing. Folks, every time, and we've told you this time after time, to liberals and radicals that want to change the way of life in America, for them, election losses are a speed bump. They continue to plow ahead with their radical agenda, an agenda that is not embraced by 75 to 80% of the American public. Now, single issues may be, okay, they may have court of public opinion on their hands for certain issues. Abortion may be one of them. Where more Americans on polling tend to support, not tightening these abortion laws, like the state of Texas has. But aggregately, when these issues pile up between the far left-wing radical policies, the spending while we have inflation going on, just everything these liberals try to do, from the Bernie Sanders AOC wing of the party, the socialist wing, 75, 80% of Americans aren't with them there. But the outrage machine, whether it be over a Supreme Court decision, over economic policies of Jerome Powell, gas prices, wanting to limit, the effect of carbon on the atmosphere, all this stuff, they don't care. They would rather have Americans spending more money for gasoline, hoping they drive less greenhouse gas emissions. They really would rather inflict pain on you, the American people, to satisfy their desire in some green energy deal. It's playing out as we expected that it would. Same thing on the court thing. Anytime a ruling goes against them, God, we got too many Republicans on that court, too conservative, we got to pack the court. No, that's not going to happen either. And they get frustrated because laws they want to implement aren't being implemented. Bills they want passed to the degree aren't being passed. They get very frustrated with that. Good, I'm glad. The more they're frustrated, that means the better this country's doing, because as we've said time and time again, 70-75% of this country is either center-left or center-right, somewhere in that middle. And that's a good place for the country to be, by the way. Now, a lot of talk, too. Biden turned 79. Boy, there's a lot of hand-wringing in the Democratic Party right now. They see these poll numbers. And let me just sum it up to you like this. Most Democrats, they don't want Biden to run in 2024. He said he will run. So, again, plenty of time for that. We'll see how the 2022's tendencies go. And they're deathly fearful of having Kamala Harris lead the ticket. She's as popular as a stone, 28%. So they don't like Biden. Think about it, folks. We're 11 months into the administration, and Democrats are not happy overall with Biden. Yeah, he's still got a 75% approval among Democrats. But they can read the writing on the wall. They know Kamala Harris is not qualified to be president. They know her popularity is very, very low, 28%. And so they're looking around saying, hey, wait a minute, there could be other people here. Keep your eye on it, folks. The darlings of the Democratic Party, Pete Buttigieg, Stacey Abrams, among others. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. There's other names, Amy Klobuchar, some others that ran previously. I don't think, let's get through 2022 before we get to 2024 speculation, but it's interesting to see how Democrats are looking at each other. Okay, we'll close it out on some favorable news. Okay, stock markets are still near all-time highs. Okay, more people are coming back to work. That's a good thing. We'll see if these job numbers continue to get better. Yeah. The Rittenhouse trial is over. Maybe people will accept that verdict and quit trying to divide the country. And we're heading into a Thanksgiving holiday weekend. So let's be optimistic on the United States. A lot of great things still going on in this country. Let's not be distracted. Let's stay focused. Continue to have more people get jobs. Slow down that monstrosity of a bill. Thank you, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And let's focus on having a good holiday week coming up. All right, John Eidsmoe will be with us tomorrow. We'll talk the legal implications of the case. Thanks for joining us today. Everybody stay safe. Those COVID cases are rising. Try to follow the guidelines. Okay, that's it. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.